Natural resources such as oil, gas, rare earth metals, gold, silver, and dozens of other raw minerals are all abundant across the African continent. It possesses the biggest reserves of diamond and uranium, 90% of the world's chromium and platinum, and 40% of the world's gold. Nonetheless, these are sold at the lowest prices to nations in Europe. Following their purchase, European nations produce final goods that are marketed for prices that are significantly greater than those paid to African nations. The question of why African nations continue to sell their raw commodities at the lowest cost arises at that point. That's because they had to enter into agreements to sell raw commodities exclusively to their colonial overlords prior to gaining freedom. For this reason, even though it has an abundance of raw materials and natural resources, the population of Africa is far from rich, and the continent is the poorest. However, this is beginning to change as African nations are outlawing the export of these raw minerals to Europe. Production and earnings have been halted, which has had the worst conceivable impact on Europe. However, which nations have prohibited certain raw materials? Watch this video to learn more about it. 10. Ghana prohibits exports of grains and gold. At a time when everything was about to change for Africa, on July 27, 2023, Ghana imposed a ban on the export of raw gold. Ghana's cabinet made the decision, which was in line with a pattern seen in a number of other African countries. After ages, nations came to the realization that they were benefiting Europe, not themselves, by exporting all the important raw materials. The goal of Ghana's strategy, which is anticipated to become law by the end of the year, is to protect a sizable section of the value chain before allowing the export of goods. This choice is consistent with the viewpoint of Ghana's Minister of Land and Natural Resources, Samuel A. Jainapor, who highlighted that African countries who possess minerals such as lithium, an essential component of batteries, are reconsidering their export policies. You should be aware that this revaluation comes as governments in the developed world are pushing for a change to greener technology, which has led to big automakers giving electric vehicles priority. With effect from January 1, 2023, Ghana additionally mandated that all major mining firms sell the Bank of Ghana 20% of their total stock of refined gold from their refineries. This edict was important because it made sure that none of Ghana's gold left the country. Vice President Bawumia further clarified that the gold that the PMNC and the Bank of Ghana will buy would be paid for at the spot price, without any discounts in cedis, Ghana's currency. This strengthened the local currency in addition to giving Ghana's government a physical asset. Additionally, he explained that licensed small-scale miners and community mining programs had to sell gold to the government, albeit he did not say how much this would impact their holdings. You should be aware that the government of Ghana has implemented a new policy that calls for the purchase of oil goods to be made with gold rather than US currency reserves. This action was taken in response to the local city's deterioration and rising living expenses, which were caused by the oil importers' need for dollars and the diminishing foreign exchange reserves. Additionally, Ghana continued to prohibit the export of goods such as rice, soybeans, maize, and other grains. The prohibition was extended until September 2022 after it was first put into effect in September 2021 and was supposed to cease by the end of March. This ban's main goal was to ensure that there was a sufficient supply of grains in the nation, mainly to promote domestic cattle and poultry production. The decision was brought about by rising grain prices and difficulties in international trade, which were partly caused by Russia's operations in Ukraine. 9. Uganda's agricultural product prohibition. The Ugandan government joined an increasing number of countries that have banned the export of raw materials without processing in October 2021. Nearly 80% of Uganda's overall exports are agricultural products, which make up the majority of its exports. Coffee, tea, cotton, tobacco, copper, oil, and fish are some of the nation's most important exports. This choice was viewed as a calculated step to support value chain development. About 69% of Uganda's raw resources were exported, according to State Minister for Trade Harriet Netabazi, which resulted to large income losses. Data showed that while exports of raw materials were cheap, imported completed goods were 3 times more expensive. Consequently, in order to encourage vendors to enhance their goods, in addition to allocating $28 million to the Uganda Development Bank, the ministry obtained a $28 million loan from development partners. The ministry hoped that by providing this funding, traders would be more inclined to adopt value addition, which may lead to their becoming industrialists and strengthening the nation's manufacturing industry. Uganda is not the first country in Africa to do this. Due to their heavy reliance on exporting raw materials, many African nations are susceptible to price swings and must spend more on imported processed commodities, which causes trade imbalances. For instance, because of the volatility and sensitivity of commodity prices, Nigeria, which exported raw goods worth $33.5 billion in 2020, mostly crude oil, gas, and cocoa, had the value of the naira depreciate 41.5% versus the US dollar since 2016. An important factor in Africa's economic change is the industrial sector. Adding value to minerals and agricultural products is a key driver of economic expansion. Production systems revolve around activities from conception and design to raw material supply, processing, transportation, storage, marketing, and sales within regional value chains. Therefore, Africa loses out on the benefits of these value-added processes when it exports raw materials. Additionally, Uganda began selling fewer agricultural goods to its neighbors, including South Sudan, Kenya, and Congo. Although they were not prohibited from exporting food to Uganda, businessmen discovered that their sales to their neighbors had decreased. This was brought on by the rising prices of locally grown commodities, as well as the rapidly rising costs of international shipping. Traders who were successful in selling their goods found it difficult to get paid by customers in other nations who were used to paying less. This situation further hampered corporate operations by resulting in legal conflicts between suppliers and recipients. Chris Barryamans, Uganda's Minister of ICT and National Guidance, highlighted the government's emphasis on increasing production in order to stabilize prices and manage inflation. He gave Ugandans his word that things would soon get back to normal. 8th, Gabon prohibits export of woodlogs. Gabon's wood sector is a major contributor to the country's economy. Gabon, a country in Central Africa, is well known for its vast and priceless forest resources, which include a wide variety of hardwood and softwood tree species. Approximately 85% of Gabon's total area is covered by vast rainforests. Important timber species like okium, azobe, and alumba are abundant in these forests. Because it is used to make plywood, okium in particular is highly sought for. One of Gabon's main sources of income is the timber sector, which includes the production of wooden logs. In addition to creating jobs in local communities, it greatly increases the nation's export revenue, especially in the logging and other industries. This is due to Gabon's investments in sawmills and plywood plants, which produce the high-quality timber that Europe requires. The Gabonese administration therefore shown a dedication to sustainable forestry methods. In order to avoid overexploitation, it put policies in place to guarantee ethical logging and forest preservation. Gabon has concentrated on producing value-added wood products, such as veneer, in addition to exporting logs, plywood, as well as completed wood products. The possibility to increase the value of timber exports is presented by this strategic move toward processing and manufacturing. Gabon banned the export of raw logs in 2010 because the value of finished wood products is higher than that of raw logs. The export of logs has been prohibited in Gabon since January 2010, ending the practice of shipping wood in log form. According to the International Timber Trade Organization, This prohibition has been incredibly successful in stopping Gabon's log exports. IDO reports that the prohibition has left about 60,000 cubic meters of logs, mostly bound for China, stuck at the port. However, the advantages of the prohibition exceeded the disadvantages. The prohibition caused a global surge in log prices. Furthermore, since Gabon was not sending any logs, Europe began requesting completed timber goods. Gabon was able to take advantage of this and engage in the carpentry sector, which increased its income. By growing its market for processed wood and progressively shifting to finished wood products, Gabon hopes to offset the job losses brought on by the export prohibition. The ban's main goal is to reduce illicit logging, while promoting the expansion of regional businesses that specialize in processed wood products. With the reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation initiative expected to start in the next year or two, Gabon is also hoping to gain from it. Number 7. Niger prohibits uranium exports. Niger's uranium sector is vital to the country's economy. Niger, a country in West Africa, has significant uranium reserves, establishing itself as a major force in the world market for uranium. Foreign investments have played a significant role in the growth of Niger's uranium sector. Global mining behemoths like Orano and the China National Nuclear Corporation have been instrumental in the exploration and extraction of uranium by providing the funding and know-how required for these activities. However, because of unfair arrangements it had previously made, Niger found itself in a predicament where it had to sell uranium to France at the lowest costs. Niger has 5% of the world's high-quality uranium, but they were unable to take full advantage of the situation. In addition to giving France 20% uranium, it was meeting the EU's demand by giving a quarter of uranium. Niger therefore made the decision to prohibit uranium exports, particularly to the EU and France, in order to prevent the depletion of its uranium deposits. As a result of its uranium preservation efforts, Niger's share of the world's uranium exports decreased. However, its uranium sector gained attention following the coup in Niger. At first, it was said that Niger had declared its intention to stop exporting any uranium to France. Niger had indeed raised the price of uranium, but it was later determined that the export restrictions had not been enforced. In the past, it was selling France uranium at a price that was significantly less than the going rate. After the coup, it was determined that although exports would not be prohibited, prices would be raised because Niger had agreements with French businesses. To make up for the losses Niger had previously endured, the price was raised. 6th. Guinea bans exportation of agricultural products to Europe. All of Guinea's agricultural exports to Europe have been temporarily halted. Despite having abundant raw material resources, Guinea is frequently overlooked as a supplier of rice, tomatoes, onions, and maize for several nations in West Africa. The government aimed to reverse Guinea's status as one of the world's poorest countries, despite its abundance in minerals, including gold, bauxite, and iron. As a result, Guinea banned about 15 products, such as rice, maize, yams, sweet potatoes, palm oil, dried and fresh chilies, aubergines, okra, fresh tomatoes, taro, and cassava. Because Guinea had no other continent to export and create these goods in large quantities, Europe took them for granted. By prohibiting the export of these goods to Europe, Guinea chose to alter this view. As Guinea desired, this led to an instant spike in the prices of these goods. It did not, however, remove the export prohibition. The reason for this was that raising prices wasn't the primary objective. Because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, there was a global food scarcity, and Guinea didn't want to run out of its own supply. Otherwise, it would have to import the crops at much higher prices after selling them at low prices. Guinea's Ministry of Trade warned that those who violated the ban may be fined, in order to make sure it was strict and widespread. Rebuilding food supplies was the main goal of this move, which also guaranteed social stability and food sovereignty. 5. Mozambique bans raw timber log export. Located in Southeast Africa, Mozambique is home to a large number of hardwood and softwood tree species, with the northern parts of the country having the highest concentration. This industry plays a vital role in the financial prosperity of the country and makes a substantial contribution to economic development, employment creation, and export earnings. For this reason, Mozambique has become one of Europe's main suppliers of timber logs, where there is a great need for these logs for a variety of uses, including as building, furniture making, and wood-related enterprises. Mozambique is a major supplier of high-quality timber products to European countries, especially Portugal, France, and Italy. Nevertheless, Mozambique discovered that the raw logs of timber it was shipping to Europe were fetching rates that were far higher. The fact that those were processed logs was the only distinction. More money could be made, though, if those logs could be turned into furniture and other finished timber goods. As a result, Mozambique made a big move around 6 years ago when it banned the export of raw timber logs. This action was started when a measure was unanimously approved by the Mozambican parliament and went into force on January 1, 2017. As a move widely seen as essential to safeguarding the country's hardwood forests, the law sought to stop the export of unprocessed timber logs. Beams, planks, and parquet are examples of semi-processed timber products that can be exported under the new law. But it also made these semi-processed goods subject to an export tax. Crucially, this tax did not apply to properly finished wooden objects, such as furniture. As you can see, the goal was to persuade regional businesses to begin manufacturing completed wood goods that would generate more income. 4. Namibia prohibits export of raw mineral materials. The mining industry in Namibia is a vital component of the country's economy, contributing significantly to GDP growth and generating a multitude of job opportunities. Diamonds, uranium, copper, magnesium, zinc, and other mineral resources are abundant in the nation. Industrial minerals, silver, gold, lead, and semi-precious stones. As a result, Namibia is Africa's fourth largest exporter of non-fuel minerals, accounting for a sizable portion of its total exports during the previous 10 years. The diamond mining industry was a major source of income for the nation, accounting for 7.2% of GDP in 2011, demonstrating its economic importance. In Namibia, uranium mining holds a major place, drawing large international investments and making a big contribution to export revenue. The country has a lot of potential for new cobalt and lithium-focused mining operations. The mining sector was the main driver of Namibia's strong real GDP growth of 4.6% in 2022, according to the International Monetary Fund. In addition, projections of 3.2% growth in 2023 indicate that output will return to and exceed pre-pandemic levels. The notable 44% increase in diamond output, which is indicative of the mining industry's overall strong performance, is the main driver of this growth. The Namibian government, however, believed it was losing out on the chance to realize the full potential by exporting unprocessed vital minerals. Stated differently, it might make more money by using these raw metals to make goods like batteries rather than selling them for pennies. As a result, Namibia banned the export of lithium and other unprocessed key minerals. This choice coincides with an increase in the demand for these metals worldwide, which are crucial for sustainable energy technology. This action has been formally confirmed by the Namibian Information Ministry. Unprocessed crushed lithium ore, cobalt, manganese, graphite, and rare earth minerals are all prohibited. The ministry has made it clear that exports of these particular minerals would only be allowed in modest amounts after receiving approval from the mines minister, but it is not a total ban. Large lithium reserves, which are essential for energy storage and renewable technologies, are known to exist in Namibia. Furthermore, The nation is home to rare earth minerals like terbium and dysprosium, which are essential for the manufacturing of permanent magnets used in wind turbines and batteries for electric vehicles. 3. Ivory Coast bans export of cocoa beans. Although ivory may come to mind when you think of the Ivory Coast, it's important to understand that cocoa, the main component of chocolate, makes an important percentage of the country's economy. Actually, Ivory Coast's most important source of income is cocoa, which brings in about $1 billion annually. Millions of African immigrants cultivated small pieces of land in the lush interior to grow cocoa and coffee trees, and exports of these commodities were vital to the nation's economic prosperity in the 1970s. As a result, Ivory Coast is proud to be the world's leading supplier of cocoa, accounting for almost 40% of global production. Ivory Coast declared a restriction on exporting cocoa beans in order to protect and boost the value of the precious raw material it had. The price of a ton of cocoa immediately jumped 6.2% to 3,390 THRL, the most since January 2010. Ivory Coast now has two options: either begin exporting the cocoa beans or boost its earnings through processing them. This will entail producing cocoa powder and other final goods that may increase sales. Furthermore, Ivory Coast can negotiate reasonable rates for cocoa beans with international chocolate makers once the ban is in place. 2. Exports of copper and cobalt are restricted by the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Another nation that has banned the export of its natural resources and minerals is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In an effort to encourage domestic processing, this Central African country has sporadically banned the export of copper and cobalt concentrates since 2013. The DRC's Minister of Mines has reiterated the implementation of a comprehensive export ban on unrefined copper and cobalt ores, including concentrates, despite the fact that it has occasionally given exceptions for the prohibition. The goal of the prohibition, according to the ministry's notification, is to increase the export of goods made in the country. The feasibility of the restriction was questioned by local mining businesses and importers of ores from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Congo, however, is not in the mood to sell its resources at a discount because it wants to use them as leverage. Utilizing these vital minerals to boost its other revenue streams, it is more interested in producing completed goods. 1. Zimbabwe bans export of raw materials to encourage local industries. Zimbabwe's decision to ban the export of raw chrome is a significant move. This declaration was made by Information Minister Monica Mutsvangwa, who emphasized Zimbabwe's interest in using raw chrome to create finished goods that can be sold for more money. You should be aware that Zimbabwe produced 3,126 tons of chrome ore in the first quarter of this year, which is a significant rise over the 353,069 tons produced during the same time in 2020. In the previous year, the total revenue from exporting ferrochrome, a crucial component in the production of steel, and chrome ore came to $231.67 million. However, Zimbabwe's earnings could increase many times over if the raw chrome ore was utilized to create steel or other finished goods. Consequently, it chose to prohibit the exports until it did so, accumulating enough unprocessed chrome ore to begin making steel. You should be aware that behind South Africa, Zimbabwe has the second largest known deposits of chrome ore in the world. To encourage domestic ferrochrome companies, South Africa implemented an export tax on chrome ore in October. Mutsvangwa told reporters after a cabinet meeting that Zimbabwe currently has 22 chrome smelters. However, if chrome mining capacity isn't increased, these smelters may face a shortage of raw materials. Supporting these current smelters and optimizing the value derived from the country's plentiful resources are the main goals of the ban. Should all African nations stop selling raw materials to the West? Africa loses hundreds of billions of dollars yearly due to the low prices at which raw resources are sold Isn't that disastrous to the economy of Africa? Please share your opinions on how African nations need to profit from their riches, rather than letting Europe take advantage of them. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.